Welcome, everybody. Hello. My name is Adasha Townsend. I'm the content director for the Supply Side Food and Beverage Journal media brand. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here today to talk about the incredible potential of global ingredients. We're not just talking about flavor anymore. We're diving deep into the world of functionality, sustainability, and innovation. As food scientists, you have the power to transform the way people eat and drink. You can create products that not just taste good, but also do good. Global ingredients offer a wealth of opportunities to develop healthier, more sustainable, and more exciting food and beverage options. Today, we'll explore how these ingredients can enhance everything from shelf life to texture. We'll discuss the latest trends, the challenges of sourcing, and the importance of consumer perception. Joining me today are Jill Hook, Research and Development Chief at the Research and Development Chef at Culinary Culture. Her career includes roles as a health focused catering founder, cookbook author, television personality, product developer, and culinary director. Hook's work has positively impacted countless food products across the nation, and she is dedicated to mentoring the next generation of chefs in R&D. And Nadia Kamal is a partner at Topi Ventures. Her focus on agricultural technology stemmed from her Ethiopian grandparents' involvement in large scale farming and food distribution. After commercializing multiple food and beverage products, she now globally incubates sustainable CPG brands as co founder and partner of boutique firm Topi Ventures. Please give them a warm welcome. So let's start with you, Jill. Talk about how you got into product development.
Okay, first of all, I started off in information technology. So if you talk about a U-turn, I made it. After about 10 years in that career, I started work as a chef, and I've always been interested in nutrition and human performance. And so I was in a health-focused catering and personal chef company and started doing a little side hustle in product representation. I worked with a couple of ingredient manufacturers, including Ajinomoto. So that really got me into product development. I then shifted a little bit from catering and personal chef work straight into consulting, specifically with brands. So I did some work with Sara Lee, Driscoll's Berries, and so forth. And about 8 years ago, I had the opportunity to join Olam Food Ingredients, which is an ingredient supplier. I was there for 7 years and recently went back into consulting with Culinary Culture, where we do product development. So kind of a long and winding road, but it all comes together at the end, right?
Thank you. And Nadia?
I started with Coca-Cola as a sustainable agriculture fellow, working on RTD, commercializing product development, and then moved on to work on a USDA grant-funded project at a farm in Florida, which was where I became vegan. I'm not vegan anymore, but self-explanatory there. And then after that, started a food tech company and commercialized the product that we were creating. Brought those skills to CPG, where we now focus on diverse founders and bringing them to market with their emerging products.
Fantastic. So both of you travel a lot. We've talked about that in numerous conversations. So talk about how those travels have influenced your views on food.
I'm like watching trends right now because the products that I represent, it's important for me to know the market trends. Right now, Asian trends are very big in retail right now and food service. So matcha, aptogenic mushrooms. I just came from LA looking at Erewhon, which is like the go-to retail leader right now, and seeing what they have at their smoothie bar, anything wellness oriented, and also watching Gen Z trends globally, anything health, any health benefits and ingredients, I'm watching those.
Get into that a little bit about those Gen Z trends. Everybody's seeing that. So, wait, aren't you kind of like Gen Z?
I'm a millennial.
You okay?
Don't do that.
You're a baby millennial,
Yes,
though.
exactly. Talk about how Gen Z trends are really shaping the product development that's going on, but mostly how it's so much different than what's gone on in previous years.
Yeah, I think they're closely watching ingredients that companies are using, but also really closely watching their transparency in their supply chain. So we're talking about like fair trade, what they're doing for the employees working on farms, especially when we're talking about global ingredients. And then, companies that are working with co-ops and farms, but they're focused on transparency even more than taste. And we were talking about this in another panel earlier, where they'll pay more of a price point for transparency, organic, non-GMO products versus older generations who just care about I don't want to speak for everyone, but everyone's young in here, products that just do what they do.
Do you feel that the Gen Z generation, Gen Zers, do you feel that they're more open to trying new global flavors and ingredients?
Definitely.
And
Yeah.
talk about that more.
Yeah, I think TikTok right now is influencing everything global. So matcha is everywhere in everything that we eat. I spoke about aptogenic mushrooms, and they're putting that in their smoothies. But TikTok Shop is really influencing how people buy because
Explain what TikTok Shop is.
I guess I'm a TikTok representative. TikTok Shop is where buyers they have access to, the millions and millions of people that use TikTok. They can put their product on there, and then they can use influencers with a commission payment to influence people to buy the product. So you're seeing a lot of wellness powders, skincare products, and people are buying them in masses.
And also, I have a Gen Z son, and it's really fun to see like him and his friends. This is a generation that grew up with the internet, understands how to research. And so I think that really, not only TikTok, because they spend a lot of time online, but also, being able to look into claims and substantiate them is something that they're pretty adept at doing that maybe previous generations didn't think to do or didn't have access to do.
So talk about your journey Jill, as far as exploring more global flavors.
Yeah, so I grew up with a travel bug. I had parents who were teachers, and every summer they'd throw us in the car and drive us across the country, and then just kind of continued that personally and professionally. And I do it from an eating standpoint. So I oftentimes will pick where I go based on what is delicious. I had the privilege of living in India for a year. If any of you a chance to go to India, please do. The food is amazing. But that is really a way to capitalize on something that is prized in the marketplace now, which is authenticity. So if you taste the flavors in the communities where they are prepared, where those dishes come from, you'll actually know how to create something that meets that target. And to find product developers who are of that culture who can come in and share their culture with you to develop products that are authentic, which again gets us back to Gen Z, because some of the authenticity is they don't want something watered down and light, rather they're looking for something that is real. And so travel always gets me into that zone of tasting things in the cities and the countries where they come from.
Both of you, I feel like both of you kind of looks outside of the box when it comes to ingredients and product development. I want you to talk about some of the emerging ingredients globally that you're seeing, and what are some of the benefits of those ingredients?
I think for gut health, which is a big topic right now when we're talking about Gen Z and millennials in general, kefir, probiotics and prebiotics, it's an ingredient that I've seen in RTD drinks, which is where my background is. Combined with fruits, so taking Eastern Europe and something that's generally available everywhere in an RTD drink is really interesting to me. Ashwagandha, of course, we're seeing everywhere. And then just things like turmeric in our drinks, vitamin C, the things that we see normally, but more pure forms as an ingredient. And then people kind of backing that by the nutrition facts, knowing that the vitamin C is coming from something real versus artificial.
And also, kind of going along with ferment, there are a lot of ingredients that are upcycled. So they're part of the agricultural process that would typically be either animal feed or go into a landfill. And those are working their way into formulations, oftentimes they have a flavor that doesn't match a standard of identity. So, for example, if you're taking the hulls of peppers that are grown to create seeds, they don't exactly taste like the peppers that come out of the ground. And so, fermentation can really get you some interesting flavors, some novel flavors, make things a little bit more palatable and also more bioavailable. And then some of the other agricultural processes that I see that are in the ingredient space is regenerative ag. So I'm seeing a lot about that, especially in the natural space.
When you think generational differences, I want to go back to the Gen Z conversation. And Gen Z is very open when it comes to global flavors and global ingredients, but it's always said that older generations, Gen X and boomers, they are kind of more traditional. Is that true or is that not true? Are you seeing that with product development and what types of products as well?
I think if you have a product that people can experiment with, like Nadia said, ready to drink beverages, that's going to have appeal across generations. And also, you have this great cultural influence of younger generations on older generations. So I've seen my kid tell my parents, who are the silent generation, about fun products and different flavors, and they've really embraced it. So it's hard to paint a broad brush and say that a specific generation is not open to things. I would say in certain instances, you are going to find more of that receptivity in older generations.
I think it depends a lot on packaging because Gen Z is really influenced by packaging of products, whereas older generations, I don't believe they are. I believe that they're more influenced by price point and what the product can do for them, and they're a little more traditional in buying. So when I'm looking at market trends, I'm really focused on Gen Z and millennials personally, but they really buy through the packaging and then the traceability and sustainability aspects. So when we're talking about ingredients, for example, you see a lot of seaweed and algae as an ingredient right now that's trending because of the sustainability aspects. It's a lower carbon footprint than traditional land crop ingredients. And I don't see older generations, using seaweed and algae or being open to that right now.
I would say they could be depending on the health claim. So you have to think about the health claim for different generations. Anything having to do with brain health, memory loss, increased energy really cuts across the generations. And I think older consumers are receptive to that. They may not necessarily tune in and say, I want this ingredient. They're more like, I want this benefit. And you're right, they do not care about the packaging.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I agree with you. I think Gen Z is also buying for anti-aging benefits, beauty, wellness, focus as well, in a different way to be, focusing on work and daily lives. But I think we're buying for different reasons. We might buy the same product, but for different reasons. So I agree.
When you're talking about all these different ingredients, the algae and turmeric, ashwagandha, and the other products you mentioned, then you also have to think about the taste. And so, masking those tastes sometimes, how do you accomplish that without taking away the benefits? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so a lot of these functional ingredients are a lot of times found in powder form. So I mentioned Erewhon before, a lot of these ingredients are found in their smoothie bar. So they're masking it with a lot of tasty things like bananas and peanut butter and berries, but you're getting the same wellness benefits in an acai bowl or smoothie, or even some things that don't have a taste, so making them flavorless to add to our water every day so that you're just getting that supplemental aspect, but you're not getting the taste.
And there's also some other delicious things. Many ready-to-drink beverages come, coffee and tea, chocolate. These are really strong flavors that are natural, that can be excellent maskers for something that might taste a little bit earthy and can actually enhance the flavor of coffee, tea, and chocolate beverages.
Can you talk about additional whether it's beverages or functional bars or snacks or desserts, can you talk savory or sweet snacks? Can you talk about some of those applications and what's more popular with the global flavors?
We talked about energy bars, how there's like 4 flavors, which it breaks my heart. So somebody please get out there and develop something. I would say if you're looking at things like meat snacks, that's when you can get into these more global flavors, chips, any kind of savory snack, you can get into global flavors and really bust into things like, aggressive spicing, bringing in turmeric, ginger, pepper. We were talking about that this morning.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm seeing new trends in candy, plant-based candy that are low in sugar and incorporate some of those ingredients for wellness purposes.
Yeah, and there, you can do some fun stuff there. So you can bring in some sour, you can bring in salt, you can bring in spice, really leveraging global flavors coming from Mexico, coming from Southeast Asia, coming from Africa.
You just said something about meat snacks. Can you be more specific about meat snacks?
Yeah, sure. Jerky. I mean, people are, protein is where consumers' heads are these days. You know, people are on Ozempic, they don't want to lose muscle mass. As you're aging, there's been studies showing that increased protein consumption helps you. And so jerky and dried meat snacks really are having their moment. Biltong comes from South Africa. There are a number of different Mexican flavored jerkies. It's really delicious snacks.
Yes. Any product development examples that you're working on now that you can talk about that are going into global flavors, and what are some of those benefits that you're looking at as far as gut health, mindful health, any of those types of things? I'd like you to talk about that.
Yeah, specifically with gut health, a couple of drink brands that I've been talking to recently use Baobab and Moringa powder. The good thing,
What's that again?
Baobab and Moringa. So, sorry, both are trees found in Africa that are drought resistant and are found in powder form here in the US and globally so that it could benefit gut health and inflammatory health. And I think that those are great ingredients in functional beverages because of the reasons that I just mentioned with sustainability, but we have to source those responsibly. So yeah, those are great opportunities.
Talk about the sourcing those sustainably and how to do that.
So there are a couple of different ways. One, working with co-ops, regional co-ops, so that we have, I discussed earlier, the fair trade, treating farmers with the wages that they deserve, and making sure that you have that traceability aspect. So a lot of companies are doing QR codes on their packaging so consumers can learn more about their traceability process, their supply chain process, and being more transparent, which I think is the key and the future of consumer trends.
Yeah, and also giving farmers additional income streams. So I touched on upcycled ingredients before. If a farmer can derive benefit and financial gain from all parts of the crop, whether it is, like if you think about cacao and cocoa production, there is some mucus in the center of a cacao pod that is being upcycled into sweeteners. You can get fibers from a lot of these different places. And so what that does is if you give farmers a way to make more money, it makes the overall supply chain more sustainable and also reduces the cost.
Did you talk about something that you're working on, that you're developing? That
I did not
possibly-
talk about something that I'm working on. Right now I'm not necessarily working on anything that has health benefits, but I am working on something that has global flavors in it. And so, it gets back to finding ingredients that are from the culture where you are developing that product and incorporating those. And, I'm a spice girl, so spices have a lot of benefits, and maybe there's a health halo from having those in there.
I want to talk more about the sustainability issues that goes along with sourcing some of these products. And what countries do you think are the most vulnerable when it comes to some of their ingredients? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, any equatorial country and any coastal country. So if we think about, rising seas, hurricanes, and so forth, those are going to be some pretty vulnerable places. Coffee is mountainous, but has to keep going further and further up on the mountain, which becomes very labor intensive. So it may not necessarily be countries, but just more regions.
Yeah, I'd say regions with cacao. So a lot of that is West Africa, specifically is where I'm from Africa. So focus on how that's impacting our continent. and labor specifically. So I think watching the cacao industry closely, that's the fifth largest contributor to climate change in, as far as food and beverage, so not too far behind meat. And I worked closely with that in the past. So chocolate industry.
We didn't talk about, well, I think you touched a little bit on plant-based products, and those seem to be a large area, like a major area where a lot of global ingredients are being incorporated, especially for the taste factor. So can you talk anything about that? You know, non-dairy, you can talk about non-dairy cheeses, you can talk about some of the meat products, you know, not meat.
Non-dairy cheeses have come such a long way. They used to be chalky, and you were like, I can tell what the base ingredient on this is. But now they have beautiful ingredients that will do your traditional pizza melt, which is very fun. But I would say that the opportunity for plant-based is to not only incorporate protein, but to also bring in other ingredients that are healthful, like fiber. And here you can really bust out and you can find drought-resistant crops such as millet. You can work with sorghum. You can work with fonio, where you're going to get like great fiber in there that helps with gut health. It's also a nice bulking agent and gives you a nice punch if you're putting in something like pea powder or soy or nuts as your protein source.
Yeah, and with plant-based, adding spices, as you mentioned, like beet juice to plant-based to give it more of that red look and the taste with the beet juice as well. And then turmeric, I'm seeing that a lot in the plant-based chicken to give it that color as well.
Where is turmeric, where is that originated? Is it from different regions, or is it just one place? Can you talk about that?
A lot of it comes from India. And there are different grades of turmeric with different levels of curcumin, which is the active ingredient. And it grows in North India.
What are some of the best practices for sourcing global ingredients in a cost-effective manner?
I would say having multiple sources and also multiple countries of origin. That's also a nice hedge against climate change.
Okay. How do consumers perceive global ingredients? We've gotten into that with the generation some. And are there any cultural or regional preferences to consider?
So I would say consumers love global ingredients where they're appropriate. If you're putting in an ingredient just for the sake of having it on your label, it's not necessarily going to be, you know, a winning formulation. But if you are developing something that has like a Mexican or regional Mexican flavor profile, you want to make sure that you are using peppers that are grown in Mexico, because they're going to give you that taste and then also give you the health benefits of that agricultural product.
Yeah, I think with the global flavors, like I mentioned, the on trend right now, I think, is Asian. But I think we're also seeing emerging African flavors coming into the market. Like there's a company called Yolele, you mentioned Fonio. I just talked to them recently, so they're bringing Senegalese flavors to the US market, which is really interesting. So you're seeing a lot of new and exciting flavors coming in, but of course we're seeing the standard and the ones that I love also, like the matcha flavors, the turmeric is in everything, things like that.
When you say Asian flavors, can you be more specific as far as some of the countries?
Yeah, definitely. Korean flavors. You're seeing that more mainstream now, Thai flavors. And this is coming from, you know, like I work with a dumpling brand right now, and they do some innovative dumpling forms. They have the Asian flavors, but they have like the diner classics. And the Asian flavors are just going mass market, like in all retailers, Walmart, Sam's Club, Costco. So I'm just seeing that when you're looking at data, that's where everyone is buying. So they want some more ethnic flavors at home.
The Filipino flavors are some of the biggest ones, like the purple yam. I can't think of the name right now. The purple yam.
I've totally drawn a blank on that too. Who knows what it is?
Say it? Yeah, ube. Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you,
That
ube.
is like that was like the #1 flavor profile last year. I'm thinking that's the thing I'm thinking of mostly.
I mean, if you think about what Filipino food is everything delicious, right? So you have umami, you have salty, you have sweet, you have sour. I love sour. And there are a number of high-end Filipino restaurants. There's one in Chicago that is extremely well known. And then Jollibee is killing it in the United States. So I think that these flavors are really coming to the shore, and people are embracing them. I would love to see it come about in a much bigger way, but I think it's going to take a couple of generations.
Is it question time already? It is? Oh, okay. I'm looking at that and I'm like, wow. So, before we get to the questions, I just wanted you to give me a few takeaways, just, one that you'd like people to know about some of the global flavors and some of the things that you've learned in working with them.
Yeah, you got to sometimes baby step into the kiddie pool. So if you're going for a global flavor, take a format that is familiar with consumers, ready to drink beverages, snacks, something that they can buy at a low purchase price, and so they feel like they can taste it, and then overlay the global flavors over that.
Yeah, I think my takeaway is just back to the traceability aspect and being a responsible consumer and looking into the companies that you love and making sure that their supply chain is something that you align with morally, because a lot of the companies, they don't have that traceability aspect yet, and we'd be surprised what's happening in the market right now.
So please thank Nadia and Jill for their insights. This was fantastic. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Hi there, great job, ladies. So we were talking about a lot of functional ingredients in the form of functional health and wellness. I'm curious about how you layer that, talking about a lot of these ingredients being like powders, food powders, of how you think about functional ingredients for like some of your base ingredients like starches and sweeteners and oils and these types of ingredients, and just the role of those ingredient functions more for building a product versus just adding a powder for wellness function, if there's anything you could speak to about that.
I went on the journey of looking for some not necessarily base ingredients starches, because I think we can find starches from sustainable sources that are traceable. It's a matter of, do consumers want to pay more for something that's considered a commoditized ingredient? Rather, where I go with that is if you're looking at something that has a small inclusion rate and you're looking for a preservative, an all-natural preservative, some of the ingredients that are out there that are new come through fermentation. And so I would say that that is one area to look at from a functional ingredient as a product developer. Also, some of the flavor systems I think are really unique and sustainable.
So just to build on the fermentation aspect, in case anyone's not familiar, for example, I worked with a coffee brand that created coffee without the beans. So they fermented a bunch of different ingredients that we're familiar with, like lentils, carob beans, to create that coffee flavor and ferment the coffee flavor in a lab, and then create it in an end product, RTD product, to build that sustainability aspect. So I think to your point, as far as like, I think you're asking about the end product, or are you asking about at home? Yeah, the end product, right. So with some functionality, instead of a powder, I'm seeing also concentrate form. So this product specifically created the coffee concentrate to put in the end product to give it that coffee taste. They sold it as a cold brew product or an oat milk latte, but they also sold the concentrate itself so that large companies that use coffee as an ingredient in their end products could swap that out with the concentrate and build a more sustainable end product.
Hey guys, so you guys spoke a little bit about TikTok and packaging. I'm curious about that, because that lends towards the decision making of the consumer on how they purchase. Have you seen any data or indicators on the channels that they're moving towards? Is it still going to be grocery stores? Is it DTC, subscription box? Any insight?
I see a lot of movement on Amazon and in the big box stores, so like a Costco. That those consumers are so sticky right there, And so if you keep going to the same place, and then C-stores has a huge upside. So if you think about, previously C-store would surround a gas station, somebody was in and out in like 3 minutes. With electric cars, you're going to have consumers who are spending 20 minutes or more in your store. And so that could be a really robust channel for sales.
Yeah, I think I'm mostly seeing as well D2C and retail. And when I talk about packaging, I also talk about trends like compostable packaging, eco packaging options that Gen Z, I think, is paying a lot of attention to, and millennials as well. And those kind of things I am seeing mostly in retail rather than D2C because it's very expensive. So a company needs to be at a point where they're able to scale large enough, which is typically the typical sign is in retail, where they can afford to do eco-friendly packaging. And I think that that's driving a lot of business as well.
Thank you. I was wondering, what signs do you look for to know what's going to be like the next big flavor, or even like which country? Like, I know you mentioned social media, maybe like where there's more restaurants popping up, or what are some signs to know like what's going to be the next big thing, whether that be like a matcha or maybe just like Korean influence, like countries?
I look at yoga moms. They got their finger on the pulse. Whatever these ladies are doing, they are setting a lot of trends. I think that they follow a lot of like or they start a lot of what happens at Erewhon. So used to be a product development cycle, started in fine dining, then was like democratized into quick service restaurants, and then eventually got into CPG. But now we see a lot of wellness influencers. And so, yeah, if I see what the yoga community is doing, Pilates community is doing, I'm going to see it on the shelves pretty soon.
I am from the product development and manufacturing side. I'm looking at costs of goods as an ingredient and global flavors combined, because I think if a product has health benefits and it's sourced from out of the country and you can source it for pretty cheap or something that you can contribute to the product and it doesn't impact COGS, I think that that's a big driver for new product development, especially in the U.S.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you, ladies.